For today's project, I'm going to take this sign from Dollar Tree and I'm going to remove the ribbon that hangs it and the price tag that is on the back. And once you get this ribbon untied, you can just set it aside because we are going to use it later to hang it up with. Alright, so I'm going to take my little battery-powered Craftsman sander and I'm going to sand off the whole top of this sign, all of the paper, just to remove all of that so I have a blank surface. My sandpaper was kind of old. I've used it for a while, so that's what took a while getting that off of there. But once you get all of that paper sanded off the top, then you kind of just dust it off. And I'm going to use the Cottage White Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint by Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to give that a light coat on the top because I'm going to distress it also to make it look old. And then once you got that on there, you're going to let that dry for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then once that dries, take the rich black Folk Art chalk paint in your chip brush and dab it in the paint and then kind of brush it off a little bit. And then you're just going to kind of brush the edges to give it that worn, distressed look all the way around. I like it kind of dark, so I went over a couple of spots a couple of times. And then once you go all the way across, use the same paint that you have on there and dry brush the front, giving it that distressed look. With a little bit of pressure, not much. I just kind of lightly brushed it across the top. You can use different colors across the distressing if you want. And then we're going to take that matte Mod Podge and we're going to put a light coat of that across the top. And while that's drying, you can go ahead and hook up the Cricut and cut out the design that you want, because I used removable vinyl for this. I can't talk today. And then once you get that cut out, you're going to weed out the spots that you don't want, which I needed the outline, so I took out the inside of the letters, which left me with the stencil, or the outline of everything. That way I could stencil my design. And then once you have all of that weeded, which this one took me a little while because there was a lot of little lines and stuff that I had to weed around. You're going to, for some reason I didn't have the footage of the transfer tape, but you put transfer tape on there before you put your design down. Here I am pulling the transfer tape off. And I put that masking tape down the center. That way it holds my design in place. And if I need to move it, I can. And I'm not stuck with the vinyl stuck to my surface. That way I can move it around, reposition it. It's just a nice little trick that I learned when I used to put decals on boats at Baja. Alright, so go ahead and squeegee that down. Pull the tape up. And then lift up the other side. And then repeat the process of taking your transfer tape off. That way you know as soon as it lays down, if you don't have any bubbles, it's going to lay down perfect. Spread that out. Squeegee it down real well. And then we're going to remove that transfer tape that I put on there, which I use the Clear Magic at Dollar Tree. It's like a clear contact paper. I like that. It works really well for me. Sticks to the surface as well. The removable vinyl isn't ideal, but it works. And then after you get that all removed, the transfer tape removed, you're going to put a light coat of the Mod Podge. And you want to go in different directions because that's going to seal up the stencil so there's no runs of the paint. And then I got this little dabber brush from Dollar Tree. So dab that in your paint and dab it all the way across your stencil or your vinyl. and cover the entire surface of what your wording or design is. You don't have to cover the entire vinyl surface, just your cutout area. And then once you get that done, you're going to let that dry for about 10 or 15 minutes. I also will speed up the process with a hair dryer, just kind of above the surface. And once you have that all stenciled down with the paint, and it dries for like 15 minutes or so, depends on how thick you put the paint on, you're going to remove the vinyl from your surface. Be careful, make sure it's dry, that way nothing peels up. I like to use this method with the Mod Podge first. It seals in your lines, that way you get nice, clean, crisp lines. You don't get any bleed from the paint as long as you go in different strokes with the Mod Podge on top of your stencil. It kind of just seals that in and you get nice, clean, crisp lines. It might take a few extra moments to do that, but I like the results. I think it's worth it to take the extra few minutes so there's no bleed. And it comes out perfect for me every time that I do it this way. And you just make sure and remove all the pieces of the vinyl off of there. And then inside the letters, make sure and get all of those. If you're not sure, step back and kind of look at it and see if anything's kind of missing or off. You're probably missing a piece of vinyl that you got to take off. And then we're going to add another coat of Mod Podge. Mod Podge, yeah, that's what it's called. To the top of it. Just a light coat. That way nothing scrapes or peels off your paint. It is chalk paint, so it adheres pretty well. Can't talk today. What is wrong with me? And then once that dries, we're gonna start on the bow here. I'm using 5 or 6 different sizes and colors and prints. This is a Halloween bow, so I wanted some Halloween colors in there, and then some black and white check. I cut mine to 14 inches. Oh, and I also put some raffia in there to make it look country or fallish. I cut my pieces to 14 inches, and then you kind of just scatter them in an X back and forth across. And then I added the raffia, which was hard because it curls up on you, so you kind of just got to stick your finger in the middle and hold it. And then you just pinch it in the middle and kind of fold it like an accordion. And then you take a pipe cleaner or a Chanel stem and you're going to wrap that around the center to keep everything in place. And we can always adjust the bow afterwards, so just make sure and get that tight in there, good and tight, so nothing falls out. Twist it around a couple of times. And then we're going to cut off those excess tails, which we can use later for other projects. And then you're going to adjust it around how you want it to kind of look. I also want to cut the ends of the ribbon to make them look like a bow. So I like to cut those. There's 2 different ways that you can do those. Folding it in half and cutting up towards the point. And then you can just cut into the middle on both sides if you like. And then once you got that kind of adjusted how you like it, we're going to take a little piece of scrap ribbon and we're going to hot glue that into the center to kind of cover up the Chanel stem. That way you can't see it. And glue that down. And once that dries, we're going to cut off the excess tail there. And then we're almost done. Our sign is ready to hang out on our door or give as a gift. I got the image from Cricut Design Space. I think I just typed Halloween and scrolled down and found it. Here's where we're going to add that string that we took off in the beginning. We're going to add that back on there and then put a little knot at the top of it. And then we're going to place the bow where we would like it to look. I wanted mine to be at an angle. I kind of like that. And then put a little dab of hot glue to hold your bow in place. And then we're done. Like, it's ready. Just like that.